한국 바로 알리기. 여러분도 함께 해주세요.
Hello and welcome to our morning edition of Arirang News. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour. North Korea has unveiled a new weapon system that resembles Germany's Taurus air-to-surface missile and announced plans to strengthen its air force. The regime's leader, Kim Jong-un, made the announcement at an event marking the 80th anniversary of the North Korean Air Force, which was also attended by his daughter Chue in what was her first public appearance in nearly 3 months. U.S. and Ukrainian officials completed roughly 4 hours of talks in Florida to discuss a plan to end the prolonged war in Ukraine. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said the meeting was productive, but cautioned there's more to be done. South Korea's biggest online retailer, Coupang, has apologized following a massive data breach, which affected more than 33 million customer accounts. This prompted an emergency government meeting, during which officials vowed to conduct a thorough investigation. We begin this morning in North Korea that's unveiled what appears to be a new long-range air-to-surface missile resembling the German-made Taurus, signaling a push to upgrade its air power. During an event marking the 80th anniversary of the North Air Force, leader Kim Jong-un said the service will play a key role in the regime's nuclear deterrence strategy. Our Pyeongyang starts us off.
On Friday, North Korea publicly unveiled a new long-range air-to-surface missile for the first time in what appears to be part of a broader effort to modernize its air power. The weapon, visually similar to the German-made Taurus system operated by South Korea, was displayed at an event marking the North Korean Air Force's 80th anniversary. Analysts say the new missile, widely dubbed the North Korean Taurus, could significantly extend the strike range of North Korea's aging combat aircraft if its claimed performance is realized. Attending the ceremony with his daughter Chue, her first public appearance in nearly 3 months, Kim Jong-un declared that new strategic military assets and new important missions have been assigned to the Air Force. He stressed that the service would play a full part in exercising nuclear deterrence and must repel reconnaissance activities and possible military provocations by adversaries. North Korea has been accelerating efforts to upgrade its conventional air capabilities, revealing new unmanned aircraft and an airborne early warning platform earlier this year, and conducting mid-range air-to-air missile tests. Experts believe Pyongyang may be receiving direct or indirect support from Russia as military cooperation between the two countries deepens. South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff cautioned that North Korea often unveils new systems before they are fully tested, and said further evaluations are required to determine their operational capability. Pyongyang, Arirang News.
And negotiators from the United States and Ukraine sat down for talks in Florida, aimed at finding an endgame to the war in Ukraine. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said the meeting was productive, but cautioned there is more to be done. Our Lee Seung-jae has more.
Senior officials from the United States and Ukraine met once again on Sunday in Florida to continue discussions on a plan to end the war in Ukraine. The meeting came only a week after the two sides held talks in Geneva, where the U.S. introduced a peace framework developed through behind-the-scenes contact with Russia. The latest round of talks brought a high-profile American team to the table. The U.S. delegation included Secretary of State Marco Rubio, President Donald Trump's special envoy Steve Witkoff, and the president's son-in-law Jared Kushner. Ukraine's delegation was led by Rustem Umerov, Secretary of the National Security and Defense Council, who has emerged as one of Kyiv's key negotiators. Following the discussions, Secretary Rubio told reporters that the meeting had been productive. Still, he cautioned that there is much more work ahead.
I think we continued that work in our communications throughout the week. I think we built on that again today, but there's more work to be done.
Rubio emphasized that the talks are not focused solely on ending the war on the battlefield. He said the broader goal is to secure a future in which Ukraine can rebuild, strengthen its institutions, and become more prosperous than at any time in its modern history. Umerov echoed that message. He expressed gratitude to the American public and the U.S. leadership for their continued support. He said Ukraine's objective is clear: a strong, secure, and prosperous nation capable of shaping its own destiny.
Of Ukraine, we discussed all the important matters that are important for Ukraine, for Ukrainian people, and the U.S. was super supportive. We already had a successful meeting in Geneva, and today we continued this success.
According to Umerov, both sides reviewed all major issues critical to Ukraine's future, from security guarantees to reconstruction needs. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
So as we just heard, negotiators from the United States and Ukraine completed roughly 4 hours of talks in Florida. And U.S. officials are also set to head to Russia on Monday. For more on this, we're joined today by Robert English, Director of Central European Studies at the University of Southern California. Professor English, thanks for coming in today.
It's my pleasure to join you.
So the U.S. and Ukrainian negotiators completed their talks in Florida, and U.S. Secretary of State Rubio said he sees progress, but more work is needed to reach a deal. What are your thoughts on this?
My first thought is that we have very few details, and that's a good thing. Because in the past, at every stage of discussion of this shuttle diplomacy, there have been leaks, there have been public proclamations, and efforts to rally the public behind one or another position, to pressure the negotiators in one way or another. And that's very destructive. That gets in the way of the negotiators working out a comprehensive proposal. So the very fact that we don't know the details on these key security provisions strangely, is a good thing, and it means that they're finally working quietly and professionally.
Right, and the plan put forward by the Trump administration quite alarmed Ukraine officials, and the original draft heavily favored Russia, right? What do we know so far about the updated plan, and what key details still need to be agreed upon between Washington and Kyiv?
Yeah, the updated plan is slimmed down. The latest version we knew about had 20, not 28 points. And so they put aside a lot of the business and financial aspects and reconstruction elements. And the core provisions are those that they are negotiating about now. Those would be the amount of territory that Ukraine will cede to Russia. Will they stop where they are now? Or will Ukraine have to give up even more, as Moscow's insisting? Secondly, security guarantees, right? That means if Ukraine is not going to be a member of NATO in the near future, what kind of support and where will it be based can it get from its Western allies? And the third would be the size of the Ukrainian military itself. Caps of 600, caps of 800,000 soldiers have been discussed, and that will be a key provision. Where they are now, we're not sure.
Right, and as for Russia, Putin earlier said it's ready for serious discussions about the draft proposals. What might be discussed when Trump's envoy Steve Witkoff and his son-in-law Jared Kushner travel to Moscow?
Well, that is when we'll see if they've been able to narrow the two sides' positions. If the Ukrainians are conceding on the territorial issue, on the security forces issue, if they're conceding enough to Russia's demands that Putin can meet them halfway. Or instead, will he continue these maximalist demands, which mean the meeting could be a failure? And unfortunately, I expect a very hard line from Putin. I don't expect anything in the way of flexibility because he's convinced that Russia is slowly winning on the battlefield. So that if these talks fail and we have to wait 4 months, 6 months to resume talks, he'll actually be in a stronger position. He's convinced that he wins and Ukraine loses if the war goes on another 4, 5, 6 months. So he will not be giving much in the way of concessions.
I see. And, a lot of European leaders were blindsided by President Trump's original 28-point plan to end the war, and they fear being left out of the peace talks. What diplomatic steps have they taken so far and are ready to take to stay involved?
The Europeans, as you say, have been pushed to the sidelines, and I think Trump is committed to keeping them there. His most recent comments are almost scornful of the Europeans, and his attitude seems to be, I've heard your position, I've heard what you want us to do, now keep quiet, I am negotiating directly with Putin and with the Ukrainians. That's Trump's attitude in a nutshell. And indeed, the Europeans have no great leverage here. Of course, the United States is the main backer of Ukraine in terms of weapons. We are the great superpower confronting the Russian nuclear power, and Europe can only advise from the sidelines, but it cannot insist on anything. It can issue public statements. It can urge Trump and the Americans to stand up stronger for Ukraine, but it can't make the Americans do anything. And so, yeah, there's a lot of frustration on the part of Europe. And I might add that they're frustrated at Ukraine as well, because this enormous corruption scandal coming on the heel of other corruption scandals makes it harder for the leaders in Germany, in France, in England to go to their own people and say, we need to keep financing, supporting Ukraine. When so much money is apparently being wasted, that becomes more difficult. So there's a lot of pressure on Ukraine to make most of the concessions, even from its European allies.
Right, absolutely. We'll have to see how that goes. Professor English, thank you so much for your time today. We appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
A massive data breach at e-commerce giant Coupang has prompted the government to launch an emergency investigation. More than 33 million customer accounts were exposed, including names, emails, and delivery information. Officials say attackers exploited an authentication vulnerability, allowing access without normal login steps. While the exact method of the breach is still under review, authorities warn that the stolen data could be used in phishing or other secondary scams. Coupang CEO Park Tae-jun has apologized to the public, briefing the government on the incident and pledging his full cooperation. Meanwhile, President Lee Jae-myung will deliver a special address this week on the first anniversary of the martial law declaration by former President Yoon Suk-yeol. Presidential Secretary for Communication Lee Kyu-yeon announced on Sunday that the president will also hold a press conference on December 3rd with 80 foreign journalists. He's expected to send a message underscoring the restoration of K-democracy. Later in the day, Lee will have a luncheon with the 5 key figures, including South Korea's Supreme Court Chief Justice. South Korea's first Vice Foreign Minister Park Yeon-ju arrived in the U.S. on Sunday for talks on the next steps following recently concluded security and tariff agreements between the two countries. Speaking to Yonhap News after landing at Dulles Airport near Washington, Park said the purpose of his trip is to review the issues laid out in the recent joint fact sheet and discuss how Seoul and Washington can move those items forward. When asked if the two governments might create a new implementation body to work through the content of the fact sheet, he said that options being considered. On Monday, Park will meet U.S. Deputy Secretary of State Christopher Lando for Vice Foreign Minister level discussions on the follow-up steps. Despite K-pop's global popularity, concerns remain here in South Korea that the nation still has no fully dedicated concert venue. The government has now taken steps to open up Seoul World Cup Stadium for concert use, while Seoul City is speeding up work on a large-scale concert hall. Our Cha Yun-kyung reports.
Around 100,000 fans visited Seoul World Cup Stadium for the 2 concerts by singer Im Young-woong last May. Although the stadium is a football venue and lacks an in-house sound system, lighting, and stage equipment for concerts, it is the only facility in Seoul capable of accommodating around 50,000 people at once. The main issue, however, is damage to the grass playing field. In Wembley Stadium in the UK, the home of the national football team and also a major concert venue, special protective mats are used to cover the grass when performances are held. One idea being discussed is bringing in such mats as a temporary protective measure. At the same time, a plan to introduce appropriate sound and lighting system is being considered so that Seoul World Cup Stadium can be used as a large-scale K-pop concert venue.
There is a place called Wembley Stadium in London. Blackpink and even BTS have performed there. To protect the turf, they use special mats. We are now planning to run tests so that we can also bring in and use those special mats.
As a fundamental solution, Seoul City plans to build a large-scale concert venue in the metropolitan area with a capacity of 30,000 to 40,000 seats. Additionally, the K-pop-focused multi-complex Seoul Arena features a large concert hall that can accommodate up to 28,000 people and is scheduled to open in the spring of 2027. The construction work started last July. The complex will also include a mid-sized 7,000-seat concert hall, a movie theater, and commercial facilities to transform the northeastern part of Seoul into a major K-pop destination. The Goyang K-Culture Valley project, which had been stalled, is also preparing to resume construction of its concert hall. Looking at the timeline, following the opening of Seoul Arena, a series of venues will open by 2032, including Cheongna-dome near Incheon Airport, the Goyang K-Culture Valley complex, and the Jamsil-dome, which is part of the redevelopment of the Jamsil Sports Complex. With these developments, the basic infrastructure needed to channel the excitement of K-pop into Korean tourism will be in place. However, challenges still remain in enriching the content of K-pop, such as attracting high-quality performances, establishing safety manuals to support them, addressing the ticket scalping problem, and developing tourism products linked with regional destinations. 차윤경, Arirang News.
Good morning, I'm Choo Ji-hyun, and this is The World Now. In Israel on Sunday, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu formally asked President Isaac Herzog for a pardon, citing national interest as he faces ongoing corruption trials. Netanyahu has been on trial since 2020 on charges of bribery, fraud, and breach of trust across 3 cases, accused of accepting lavish gifts, offering regulatory favors, and seeking positive media coverage in exchange for influence. He denies all charges, calling the trials a political witch hunt, and claims the process is dividing the nation. President Herzog's office confirmed receipt of the request and said legal opinions will be reviewed before any decision is made. Opposition leaders insist a pardon must include an admission of guilt and Netanyahu's full retirement from politics. In Sri Lanka, Indonesia, and Thailand, nearly 900 people have died after catastrophic floods and landslides struck over the weekend, driven by heavy monsoon rains and Cyclone Ditwa. On Sunday, Sri Lanka confirmed 334 deaths with tens of thousands displaced and the capital Colombo inundated due to Cyclone Ditwa. President Anura Dissanayake declared a state of emergency, calling the island it's the island's worst disaster in 20 years. In Indonesia, over 440 were confirmed dead and hundreds remain missing, mostly in Sumatra, where aids remain delayed and key areas are unreachable. Thailand reported at least 162 deaths in what officials say is the country's worst flooding in a decade. The storm may have damaged infrastructure, cut communications, and triggered widespread food shortages. In the U.S. on Sunday, White House economic advisor Kevin Hassett said he would be happy to serve if Donald Trump selected him as the next Federal Reserve chair. Speaking on Fox News, Hassett avoided confirming whether he's the front runner, but cited a positive market response, including a drop in Treasury yields below 4% after reports of his potential nomination. Trump, who has grown increasingly frustrated with the current chair, Jerome Powell, is expected to name his pick before Christmas. Hassett is seen as aligned with Trump's push for deeper interest rate cuts, though analysts warn he may face challenges uniting the Fed's rate-setting committee. Fed Governors Christopher Waller and Michelle Bowman are among other potential picks. In the UK on Saturday, legendary playwright Sir Tom Stoppard died peacefully surrounded by family at his home in Dorset at the age of 88, according to his agent. Tributes poured in from around the world, with King Charles III calling him, quote, one of our greatest writers. Stoppard, known for both the play and film versions of Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead and Shakespeare in Love, won an Oscar, 5 Tonys, and 3 Olivier Awards during a career that spanned more than 6 decades. He had been ill in recent months, but no cause of death was formally disclosed.
We've officially stepped into December, and winter is wasting no time settling in. Cold air from the north is pushing down across the country, and temperatures will continue to drop through the week. On Wednesday, Seoul starts off at just -7 degrees Celsius, but along with the wind, it will feel closer to below -10 degrees, and it's going to stay below freezing all day on Wednesday. And despite a colder air, a touch of yellow dust is also hanging around today, making the air murky across Korea. But colder northwesterly winds will gradually clear the air later on. And most places will be running colder than yesterday, and Seoul will be topping out at 8 degrees Celsius, Gwangju topping out at 12 degrees. Along the East Coast, the air remains very dry, with dry weather advisories in place with strong winds. So please be extra careful to prevent fires. This week will bring both snow and and rain. Western parts of Korea in particular could see 8 to 10 centimeters of snow piling up. So some rough weather week ahead. Take care.
That's all we have for this morning. Arirang News will be back at noon Korea time. Thanks for watching. to bring a new type of news show.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Bringing news just for you. It's Monday, December 1st here in Seoul. I'm Lee Soo-jin, and this is News Generation. Joining us today is Chuyeon.
Happy Monday, Soo-jin.
Happy Monday, and also Niles with us.
Happy December.
Happy December, and both are here to speak on behalf of people in their 20s and 30s. So it's Monday, the start of a brand new work week and a month, and for a lot of us that means gearing up for another busy few days. So to shake off that Monday slump, let's do things a bit differently and kick things off with a quiz. So they say that when this goes up, your sense of loneliness can also rise. So what do you think this is, Chuyeon?
Well, I'll level with you. For me, that's the huge amount of laundry. I'm not just talking about the laundry, but the sheer size of my laundry pile. The bigger it gets, the more it sits over there, just staring at me, asking me some questions with this quiet and almost judgmental for me. Well, so at a certain point, it stops looking like clothing at all sometimes and starts feeling like a physical reminder for me that I have been doing a lot of my life and alone lately. And so yes, indeed, when this goes up, the sense of my emptiness, or should I say loneliness, goes up and up, rises with it.
Do you feel like you do chores often?
Every day, every single day, maybe more than 2 or 3 hours a day. Yes.
It's not easy.
Not easy.
So the thing is, once you stop doing, like I'm not the cleanest person, as my mom would attest to this, and it just gets harder and harder because it just builds up. So what about you, Niall?
I would say the price of chicken. I think a lot of Koreans could agree to this. Maybe the only joy that we have in our life is eating chicken and beer after work. And when the price of that sole thing that brought you joy keeps going up, you feel the weight of the world on your shoulder, and things are rising and my pay isn't rising and you just kind of shrivel into this ball of loneliness. So yes, chicken, meat, beef, yes, anything.
I think a lot of people relate how while our salaries aren't rising, grocery prices are, but neither are what we're going to be talking about today. So to find out what we'll actually be talking about today, let's take a look at the screen. Going to work is never exactly fun, but when simply getting to work becomes a challenge, starting your day can feel even tougher. Commute times aren't something most of us think about too deeply, they're just part of the routine. But in reality, they can shape everything from our mood and productivity to how much energy we have left at the end of the day. And here in Korea, long commute times have become almost a defining factor of daily life, especially for young workers. Today on News Generation, we're taking a closer look at why commute times have become such a major issue in Korea, why Korean millennials and Gen Z spend unusually long hours commuting, and the smart strategies that can help make that daily journey a little easier. So as we just saw in the video, commute times in Korea aren't just a small part of the day. They affect how we feel when we get to work, how much free time we actually have, and ultimately how balanced our lives can be. And that's exactly why we're diving into this topic today, because commuting isn't just about transportation, it's about quality of life. So let's bring it to a personal level. So Chuyeon, how long does it take you to get to work usually?
Well, personally, I put those commuting time, and I think that's the most important thing in my life. Well, I take my commute very seriously. I like to keep the going back and forth to an absolute minimum. When I was younger, I even lived in my school halls of residence or dorm in Seoul, simply because I wanted to avoid wasting my time on the road, even though I was living in Seoul. And later, when I attended a school that was over an hour away, I tried reading and studying on the tube and subway, but eventually worn me down, so I ended up transferring to another one in Seoul. I really value those proximity ever since, and these days I'm rather lucky. My commute is actually quite short. If I take the car, it takes only 20 to 30 minutes. The bus will take me, only like 30 minutes, less than 30 minutes sometimes. So most days I prefer those buses, and as I said, and it gives me just enough time, quiet time for me to read the script before I be online, on air that is. So it just keeps life wonderfully manageable for me.
So I heard that you do this, that you tend to look at the script and stuff before you come into work. So I actually tried that this morning because usually I drive to work, but then today I actually took the public transportation. So it's quite nice, like you said, it's really, you feel more efficient.
It's quite time.
Yeah, to do your own stuff. So what about you, Lyle? How long does it take you?
As somebody who drives, I want to point out that you can actually put the script into something that reads it out loud for you.
Oh, that's cool.
You can kill two birds with one stone. But I am actually one of the lucky ones. I only have 35 minutes of commute in the morning, but then again, I do wake up at 3:30 in the morning and leave the house at 4. So, but going back, there is a little bit more traffic. So 1 hour going back home from Seocho, where we are in Arirang, going up to Ilsan up north. But when I did used to take public transportation, it would take 2 hours just one way. I don't know how I managed it, but I enjoy my larger, I guess, cheaper housing in the outskirts of Seoul. So that's why.
So it looks like there is quite a wide range of commute experiences here in Korea. Some people get to work in under 30 minutes, while others spend hours on buses and subways every single day, also depending on when you also get off work. But to really understand the scale of the issue, it helps to put it into a global context. So how does Korea compare to other countries when it comes to average commute times, Chian?
Well, that's a very good question, because Korea is listed on the top. If you look at the data, yes, it is indeed. Well, according to a recent global study across 43 countries, Korea recorded the longest commute in the world. Well, an average of 1 hour and 48 minutes every single day, which is roughly 1.5 times longer than the global average of 1 hour 8 minutes. If we compare with Morocco, which is Niall's second hometown, Morocco comes in at just 48 minutes, which really highlights how extreme the gap is. So this gap blows me away every time I see it. I even ask the writer again to check the information, whether it's right or not. And researchers warn that long commutes can disrupt how eating, movement, and resting patterns directly impacting both physical and mental health, of course. And in fact, research shows that people who walk through those green natural routes, I'm not sure we can find those pictures here, but they feel those notably emotional touch, and they are more emotionally balanced as well. So when people say, no wonder it feels like my entire day disappears on the subway or tube, it's not just your feeling, it's true, it's based on the data.
Yeah, so I have a coworker here, and she tells me that it takes her nearly 2 hours to get here.
2 hours.
Just to get
exhausted just arriving here.
Right, so if you're doing an 8-hour workday, like that's 4 hours back and forth, which is half your workday, which is a crazy amount. So like you said, it matches what a lot of office workers say, that half the day basically disappears just, when you're on the road. So, and that's a huge difference. Oh, and also looking at the data, so almost an extra 40 minutes compared to the global average, because you said for Korea, it's an average is 1 hour 40 minutes, which is insane. So no wonder people feel drained even before the workday even starts. So what about for age group, Niall? Are younger workers commuting longer than older workers?
So it seems. So let's first take a look at this graph. According to last year's Statistics Korea survey on commuting by time by age group, the older the group, it seemed there was a shorter commute. People in their 20s, the average was 74.4 minutes. For people in their 30s, a little more, 76.9 minutes. People in their 40s and 50s, it went down to 73.7 minutes. People in their 60s went down significantly to 69.9 minutes. But again, this is in comparison to each other. Amongst them, millennials and Gen Z were found to have the longest commute times.
So these numbers really reflect what we hear from many younger workers, that they're often living further out due to housing costs, that they end up spending the most time on the road. So hearing about the millennials and Gen Z's commuting trends made us also curious about everyone else's habits too. So we asked on the Arirang News YouTube channel, what do you use for your daily commute? So here's what the results showed. So according to
to the poll results, public transportation was by far the most common way people commute, with around 51% of respondents saying they rely on the subway or the bus. So another 32% report using a personal vehicle, while 13% say that commute to work by walking or cycling, and the rest 4% fell into a mix of other transportation methods. So it's quite interesting to see that half of our viewers depend on public transportation. That really reflects how central the subway and bus systems are to daily life here. And it's no surprise that public transportation tops the list, really. For many people, it's the most fast, reliable, and sometimes the only realistic option, especially during rush hour. So even with so many people relying on public transit, commute times remain long for many people. So, Jian, let's look at the main reason commuters in Korea, especially the younger generation, and why are you traveling for such a long time?
It's a very good question, because I do believe that the most high quality jobs, they're all concentrated, heavily concentrated in Seoul. According to recent research or generational migration, nearly half of Gen Z who moved to Gyeonggi-do province or Incheon still commute into Seoul for work. And with Seoul's housing prices being as high as they are, many young people choose more affordable homes in other metropolitan areas like Ilsan or Bunda, but their workplaces are still in the capital Seoul, so long commutes become almost unavoidable. So even when compared with non-capital regions, commute times in the Seoul metropolitan area remain significantly longer. It's a structural issue rather than a personal choice that is, and that's why when the government talks about building new cities, urban planners emphasize not only well-designed housing and infrastructure, but also the creation, making those meaningful jobs, local employment inside that city. A city simply doesn't work if people have to travel elsewhere to earn a living. So jobs and services need to be built in from the start to ensure the sustainability and the quality of life for the citizens. And after all, a great city is one you don't have to escape every single morning.
I agree. I think infrastructure is an issue that needs to be talked about more. Like, I have friends that live in Incheon and also in the Gyeonggi-do area, the outskirts of Seoul, and it's like it's so hard to visit them. And for them to come here, I feel like even the distance itself is not too far. If you're taking public transportation, it's such a difficult road there as well. So it's really a tough balance. You want to live somewhere affordable, but your workplace is still in Seoul. So it really is a structural problem. So there's concentrated jobs, expensive housing, and a huge number of people all just funneled into the same routes every morning. So sometimes it's not even about how long it takes to get there. It's such a difficult road there. And so with so many people moving in and out of Seoul every day, what does that mean for traffic and public transportation during the rush hour? Like, what is their experience usually?
Well, it's not looking good, guys. Because such a large proportion is concentrated around Seoul, the public transportation, especially during the commute hours, is inevitably very, very crowded, and the roads are already packed with cars. So morning traffic and evening traffic congestion in the metropolitan area is amongst the worst in the world. And according to a recent study by the Gyeonggi Research Institute, office workers hope to reduce their commuting daily by an average of 23 minutes or more. The survey also found that MZ workers who value the work-life balance consider commuting time a major factor when they're deciding to maybe switch jobs. However, the reality is very far from ideal.
So all this really shows how exhausting the daily reality can be, and even shaving off 20 or 30 minutes would make such a big difference, but with so much congestion, that's not always hard to achieve. So we also wanted to get a different perspective. So we're going to speak with someone from a country with a relatively short average commute time, and that conversation will take place right after the break, so don't go anywhere.
NewsGen wants to hear from you. Go to YouTube and search out channel Arirang News. Click Posts and cast your vote in the poll. Make a new type of news with us.
Joining us today is Francesca, a millennial from Italy. So hi, Francesca. Thank you so much for connecting with us today.
Hi, good morning, everyone.
Good morning. So what is the average commute time for young people in your country? What modes of transportation do they usually use?
Actually, I think that the average commuting time in Italy for younger generation is pretty much the same as the older ones. And it takes about 20 to 30 minutes. And main transportation usually is by car, but also by public transportation. And especially in the bigger cities like Rome or Milan, many people go to work by motorcycle because it's a good way to avoid the traffic and also for parking, because in cities like Rome, parking is very, very difficult. So yeah, it's quite short, but it depends a lot also on the scale of the city. So bigger cities have a longer commuting time, while smaller towns have a shorter commuting time.
20 to 30 minutes and motorcycles sounds lovely. Then what factors do you think contribute to Italy's relatively shorter commute times?
I think it's because of how Italian cities are designed, because they have a very mixed layout. So you don't have a residential area and then the business area. Usually everything is mixed together. So you have the houses, shops, services, offices, everything is very close by in the same place. So it's pretty easy to go to work. And if you're lucky enough, maybe your workplace is in the neighbor you are living. So yeah, I think that's the reason.
Well, I can imagine there can be many benefits to this, but what would you say are the benefits of having a shorter commute?
Oh, there are many, many benefits, actually only benefits. I feel like Italians have a life after work. Many Italians have time for themselves, so maybe for some hobbies or engaging in sports or for their family. So the average Italian, maybe after work, they get off, they go like grocery shopping, they run errands, they go pick up their children to school, or maybe engage in some community activities. So meeting friends, having like some kind of even like conversation with people from the same neighborhood. It's very, very common. So I think that it has many like mental and also physical benefits.
That's wonderful.
The moment you told us about life after work, having like a full life after work, all three of us reacted immediately to that, which shows how rare and kind of precious that is. Anyways, thank you so much for sharing your insight with us today.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you so much for having me.
So we just talked to a young person from Italy about how long it takes her to get to work, how satisfied she is with her commute, what kind of transportations people in Italy rely on. So hearing about her experience and of people in Italy's experience makes us wonder about the choices commuters face here, right here in Korea. So people joke about it like a balance game, so weighing different kinds of commutes against each other. So here's one, June. Would you rather sit the whole way for an hour and a half or make multiple transfers, but you'll get there in half the time, so in around 30 minutes?
Well, of course, definitely the second one. You know, Francesca just
Okay.
mentioned a life after work. We need that. You know, time is precious. We need that. And I'd rather move a little bit more, move a bit more than just sit still for 90 minutes in a tube. At least when I'm transferring, I feel like I'm moving a little bit, making progress instead of just waiting for the ride to end for me. And honestly, arriving faster means I can start my day earlier with a cleaner hair, and that makes all the difference. And of course, a life after.
That's really important, but also I think, but for me, it's actually kind of a hard thing to answer because
that was quite touching indeed.
The things that you won't be able to look at your script or like do extra work in between. So I think that is why that is actually like a hard question. What would you prefer?
You know, I think if it cuts to half the time, then yes, maybe I would stand. But if it's maybe a 15-minute difference, I think I would just sit still. If I can be guaranteed a seat, I feel like that raises the quality of your commute by being able to sit down and relax a little bit, because that leads into, you know, excessively long commute can actually cause so many different problems, including physical ones. A research team at Gangbuk Samsung Hospital analyzed office workers in Seoul and found that the longer the commute, the greater the sense of loneliness. And we talked about the loneliness. Yes, so if the hour commute is very long, then you become lonelier. and that it can lead not only to mental health issues such as depression, but also cerebrovascular and cardiovascular diseases. These risks are particularly high for those who commute by private car, so having more alone time in there. In addition, long commuting times are more likely to result in sleep deprivation, which can lead to decreased physical activity, reduced stamina, obesity, and high blood pressure. So all of these terrible things that we really need to watch out.
You know, I thought like the one bad thing, or the worst part of having long commutes is just being tiring, but I guess I will have to check up on my friends.
So many different ways of being tired, mentally, physically, yeah.
It seems like it. So it actually has a lot of real consequences, from loneliness and depression to even cardiovascular risks, apparently. So no wonder people feel drained even before starting work. So it's more than a daily inconvenience. It's literally affecting both our bodies and minds. So given all these risks, what are some ways to make commuting less stressful and more efficient, Jian?
Well, the thing is, our Korea's public transportation is one of the best, I should say, and we are heavily relying on that. But the thing is, getting a good seat during rush hour, that's the most important point when you take the transportation. And in rush hour, it keeps me on my toes because you never quite know when a seat will open up. So some people even share those simple tips, like spotting who will get off next if they're grabbing their purse, their bag, or if they're looking at the mirror, checking their face. They might, you know, leave the place or leave the train soon, so you can grab the seat at the perfect time. So at this point, we're basically professional seat hunters at the end. But of course, let's not forget, seats always go first to those who need them, you know, like the elderly, pregnant women, or anyone with mobility difficulties.
I'm glad you did point out, like, Korea does have a great public transportation system, so it's a real blessing to be able to get to pretty much anywhere, but also at the same time, it's really important. I'm glad you said that, like, to leave those spots open for those pregnant women. So what about you? Do you have any tips?
Yeah, I think going along with the physical symptoms we mentioned earlier, maintaining a proper posture when you're commuting is important. It is very difficult. I've personally ruined my posture by doing long commutes like this, but reclining excessively in a vehicle when you're driving or bending your neck back while using a smartphone in public transportation places extreme stress on the spinal joints, and frequent stretching is recommended, as well as exercise.
All of these are really good advices. So commute time is something we often accept as part of daily life, but as you've seen today, it shapes our mood, our health, and even our choices about where to live and work. So hopefully this issue will be taken more seriously, not just by individuals trying to cope, but also by employers and policymakers who can help make everyday life a little easier for everyone. And until then, hopefully the tips that we shared today will be helpful in making your own commute a little lighter, healthier, and more manageable. So that brings us to the end of today's episode of News Generation. When News Gen will be back tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. Korea time with more stories and discussions. A big thanks to Jian.
Thank you for having me.
For coming in, also Niall.
No problem.
And to our viewers, thank you so much for joining us today, and we hope you have the best day. We are News Generation.
How to survive in Korea. Weddings. Step 0. Attire. As a guest, dress formal to business casual. Avoid wearing all white, shorts, or going topless. Step 1. Arrival time. Arrive 30 minutes prior to the wedding ceremony. Too many cars, too many halls, too many people. There are many twists and turns. Take pictures and shake hands. And write your name vertically, not horizontally, in the guest book. Step 2. or shibor, 50,000 won, 100,000 won, 150,000 won. Cash gifts are given in these units. Decide on the amount based on your relationship. Write your name vertically on the envelope. Step 3. Wedding etiquette. Fill up the front row. Guests have 3 duties to fulfill: clapping, cheering, and taking pictures. Step 4. Dining. Take off your jacket. This will be your seat from now on. Start with the not your everyday delicacies. Kobe-jip. Yes. Bosa. Yes. Chili shrimps. Definitely yes. Kimbap. Yeah. Only if you can't live without it. No need to pile up food. You have more than one opportunity. Did you survive the wedding? Wait. Did someone catch your eye? What are you waiting for? You're looking fine today.
우린 알 수